I found them beneath a massive bridge in St. Paul, amid freezing rain and the roar of trucks above. A young man, curled up like a fallen leaf, was clutching a feverish baby to his chest under a soaked jacket. That face, hauntingly familiar, the strong jawline, those dark, deep eyes. I had once loved that very look in another man. No, this wasn't a stranger. This was Michael, my grandson, the child I had believed dead for 28 years. Before I tell you the rest, let me know where you're listening from, and don't forget to subscribe to Silent Elderly Stories. Here, we believe the best chapters in life aren't reserved only for the young. 30 years ago, if someone had asked me about the most significant loss of my life, I wouldn't have said death. I would have said betrayal. That day, I walked into my husband's office, Henry Carter's, where every brick of Blue Horizon Developments had been laid. The room was eerily silent. The safe drawer stood wide open, empty. On the desk lay account statements. Every investment fund, every reserve, every scholarship trust for future generations, gone. $100 million. And the person responsible wasn't a stranger. It was our son, Daniel Carter, our only child, our blood. The man Henry had once called the heir to Henry Carter's legacy. When I called the bank, the accountant, the lawyer, each said the same name. Daniel had signed everything, withdrawn it all, left the state, leaving behind nothing but a scribbled note. I need to start a new life. I can't recall exactly how my scream sounded when I saw Henry collapse into his chair, clutching his chest, eyes hollow with disbelief, as if the entire world had just betrayed him. He didn't survive the heart attack that day. The doctor called it natural. I called it a broken heart. After the funeral, I disappeared from society. No more charity galas, no more boardrooms, no more visitors crossing the threshold of our penthouse. I lived in silence, with memories, a restraining order, and Henry's portrait on the cold white wall. Blue Horizon Development still stood. I refused to let it die with him. I took control, declined every interview, every nomination. I worked with the executives like a ghost, cold, precise, untouched by emotion. It was the only way I knew to survive. As for Daniel, I hired investigators. I needed to know where he'd taken the money. Reports said he lived in Seattle with his wife, Brenda, working at an investment firm, using Carter's name to open doors. No remorse, no sign of ever wanting to come home. I also learned he had a son, Michael, born a few months after the theft. Then they vanished. 3 years later, an anonymous call claimed Daniel had taken his family out of the country. "You should consider them dead," the caller said. I didn't investigate further. I let go. 28 cold years passed like a dream gone numb. I became Mrs. Evelyn Carter, the invisible founder, with too much power to ignore. At board meetings, I appeared like a ghost. They called me the Ice Queen. I didn't deny it. Ice keeps fragile things from melting. Rage, grief, and the memory of a family that once was. 3 days ago, I found a black envelope on my desk, thin, no note. My assistant, Rachel, didn't have to explain. She'd worked for me for 15 years, long enough to know that some things don't need words. I didn't touch it for 48 hours. I rearranged papers around it, sipped coffee like a shield. I opened the glass door and stared out over the San Francisco Bay, where the waves still broke like they had 30 years ago, when Henry was alive. We dreamed of a future for the next generation. That dream had been stolen. This morning, I could no longer pretend. I opened the envelope. Inside was a brief report, 6 pages, and a blurry black and white photo printed on cheap paper. The information was simple. Michael Carter, 28, born in Seattle, moved to Minnesota at age 6. No criminal record, average student. A former employee at an agricultural packing plant was laid off 9 months ago due to budget cuts. Married at 24 to a woman named Laura Jensen. 1 daughter, Lily Carter, 16 months old. Then everything fell apart. Laura left him for another man. Michael lost his home after 3 months of unpaid rent. His car was towed. His bank account held less than $50. The line that froze me came near the end. Called parents requesting temporary help. Request denied. I repeatedly read those 2 words, request denied, as if they might change if I looked long enough. But they didn't. Daniel had rejected his own son, just as he once rejected us. No apology, no trace of conscience. Some patterns run deep in the blood. The final page was the photo. A stretch of bridge, dim gray light, rain blurring the concrete. A thin man crouched, cradling a small bundle in his arms. A torn jacket covered the baby's face. One tiny hand reached out, clutching his collar like an anchor in a storm. I stared at that picture as if I could step inside it and pull them out of that cold shadow. Michael, my grandson, and little Lily, Henry's great-granddaughter, live under a bridge. No home, no food, no hope. I can't remember the last time I cried. Maybe the day Henry died. Maybe earlier. But as I folded the photo, tears fell onto the corner of the page, leaving a pale blur where the ink bled. I set the photo down gently, as though it could break. Then I stood. No pleading, no call from Michael. No one told me what to do. But I knew one thing for sure. I still had a family. And this time, I wouldn't lose them. I pressed the intercom, my voice sharper than in any board meeting I'd ever led. "Rachel, prepare the jet. I'm leaving San Francisco tonight." "Yes, Mrs. Carter. Destination? St. Paul, Minnesota. Call Logan from the car service. I'll need a driver at the airport and pack for a week. Warm clothes. This trip isn't business." Rachel didn't ask questions. She never did. And this time, I was more grateful than ever for that. I can't remember ever feeling this nervous for a trip, not even during multi-million-dollar negotiations. But as the plane lifted off, leaving the California sky behind, it became clear to me. This journey would be unlike any I'd ever taken. I carried the photo of Michael and Lily in my handbag, not to look at, but as a reminder that this was real, that I wasn't chasing some sentimental dream of old age. A full meal sat on the tray beside my seat. Herb-crusted salmon, soft buttered bread, warm soup, and a glass of white wine. I didn't touch any of it. I was running on black coffee and resolve, 2 things bitter but necessary. Jessica, my flight attendant for nearly 10 years, appeared quietly as always. "Mrs. Carter, we'll be landing in about 40 minutes. The weather in Minnesota isn't ideal. Heavy rain, low temperatures. Would you like us to prepare any additional warm clothing?" "No need. I've prepared for the weather, and for worse." She nodded without another word and stepped away. I knew I wasn't easy to approach. Perhaps I never had been. But beneath that ice tonight, I felt like someone else entirely. The plane landed to the sound of rain tapping on the fuselage and the cold yellow glow of the small regional airport. Logan was waiting beside a black SUV, an oversized umbrella in hand, a symbol of quiet loyalty and discretion. "Mrs. Carter." He gave a curt nod. "Good evening, Logan. Can we leave right away?" "Of course. Address is listed in the file?" "Not an address. GPS coordinates. Under Interstate 94, north of downtown St. Paul. It's not a pretty place." Logan didn't react. Those who had worked with me long enough knew. My most unexpected decisions often hid my deepest intentions. The SUV rolled into the night. Through the window, I watched a city like any other in America. Bright fast food signs, painkiller billboards, shuttered stores. Then, the car turned east, and the scenery began to change. The new buildings vanished. In their place, an old gas station, a pawn shop, a liquor store with steel bars on the windows. Streetlights thinned out. The pavement grew uneven. And then, the bridge appeared. Logan stopped the car beside the wet shoulder. Rain hammered against the windshield, steady as the tense rhythm of my own heartbeat. "Would you like me to come with you?" "No, this is something I have to do myself." I stepped out, rain slicing across my face like sharp awakenings. Under the dim orange streetlight, I saw a small tent, wrinkled blue tarp sagging, half collapsed between mud and debris. The rain drowned out most sounds, but one fragile noise cut through. A child is crying. I moved toward the faded tarp, one step at a time. The rain stung like needles, but I didn't stop. Each step was a battle between emotion and control. Under the bridge, everything was gray. The concrete, the sky, even the air, thick with the weight of despair. The child's cries grew fainter, not soothed, just exhausted. Up close, I saw the tent was no more than a tarp sheet stretched over rotted wooden poles. One side was torn open, revealing a sight that tightened my chest. A young man kneeling, his back curved protectively over the small child in his arms. I stood still. I didn't dare call out, didn't dare speak, because I knew. This wasn't a moment for greetings. The man spun around at the sound of my approach, clutching the baby tighter, one hand pressed to the ground, ready to defend. That face, I couldn't breathe. It was Henry, my husband. No, Michael. But the same deep eyes, the sharp jaw, the tension beneath exhaustion, all his grandfather's legacy. "Who's there?" His voice was hoarse, shaking with anger and fear. I raised my hand slowly, lowering the umbrella to reveal my face. "Michael," I said softly. He froze. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" "My name is Evelyn Carter," I answered, steadying my voice. "I'm your grandmother." The words dropped like a stone into icy water. His face shifted, guarded then furious. "That's impossible. My dad said you were dead. Both of you were." "Your father was wrong about many things." He shook his head, taking half a step back. Lily, the baby in his arms, coughed weakly again and again. "I don't know who you are, and I don't care. If you came here to take something, I don't have anything left for you to take." I knelt slightly to meet his eyes, rain drenching my hair, cold water running down my collar. I didn't care. I didn't come to take anything. I came for you, for her. I nodded toward Lily. She's burning up. Her eyes are dark, her face is flushed, and she's sweating cold. She needs a doctor. Now. Michael held Lily tighter, conflict written across every muscle in his face. His voice cracked. "ER said it's just a cold, gave us Tylenol and sent us away. I don't have insurance. No one helps. Everyone's got a reason to turn their back." "I won't turn my back. Not this time." He went quiet. Only the rain spoke, and the faint, uneven breath of the child. "There's a car waiting 50 meters away," I said. "It's warm. There's food. And a doctor already on the way to the hotel. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to do what's right for her." Michael looked down at Lily, then back at me. His eyes reddened, not from rain, but from years of abandonment rising to the surface. "Her name is Lily," he whispered. "If I go with you, there are no strings attached, right?" "None. Just a chance to start over, if you want it." He stood slowly, still cradling his daughter. A worn backpack with frayed straps was all he owned. When I reached out to take it, he said quietly, "I can carry it myself. She's my responsibility." We walked out of the encampment together. The rain kept falling, but I knew this was Michael's first step out of the shadows in years. The SUV waited beneath the hotel awning, engine humming, warmth filling the cabin. Logan said nothing as we climbed in, soaked to the bone. Michael sat first, Lily pressed to his chest, trembling with cold and exhaustion. I sat beside them, silent. And in that moment, I understood. Silence can be its own way of saying, "I'm here and I'm not leaving." We reached the Grandstone Hotel in less than 10 minutes. Dr. Winters, the physician I'd called from San Francisco, was already waiting in the suite. There were no forms, no questions, only urgent care and the heart of a mother at work. "Mild respiratory infection," she said after examining Lily. "But another day's delay could have led to complications. I'll leave some medication and care instructions. She'll be fine." Michael sat there, not once letting go of his daughter. His eyes lifted, and for the first time, he looked at me not with suspicion, but with quiet gratitude. I gestured toward the dining table where trays of hot food still steamed. "You should eat something. How long has it been since your last proper meal?" Michael hesitated. Then he nodded, though he still didn't release Lily. I reached out, not forcing, not rushing. "Let me hold her for a bit. It's been a long time since I held a child, but my hands still remember how." He hesitated, then, with the caution of someone used to scarcity, gently placed Lily in my arms. She was light and warm. I looked down at that tiny face, flushed from fever, her breathing slowly settling into a steady rhythm. I wondered, how many nights had she fallen asleep to the sound of traffic and rain against tarp walls, without ever hearing a lullaby? When I looked up again, I saw that Michael had eaten most of his meal. His hands trembled slightly, not from cold, but from the unfamiliar relief of finally letting his guard down. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you doing all this?" I didn't answer right away. I looked at Lily, then at him. "Because I've already lost everything once, and I can't endure losing again." He went still. I continued softly, as if speaking to myself. "You don't have to trust me right now. You don't have to stay. But I want you to know there's a place where, if you choose to rest, the door will always be open. No obligations, no conditions, just a chance to heal." Michael nodded slightly, and I knew. A layer of ice had melted. Not completely, but it was a start. Finally, I invited him to California. Home. "Just for a few days," I said. "The weather's gentler. You'll have your own room, a nurse for Lily, and a quiet kind of safety." He didn't reply immediately, but before going to bed, he stood at the doorway for a long time, looking at me. "If Lily gets better, we'll come with you. For a week. No more." I smiled. A week was enough to start rebuilding a fallen bridge. The flight to California passed in silence. Michael sat by the window, Lily asleep on his chest, her head tilted, breathing evenly. He didn't talk much, didn't look at me, but his hands, still holding her tightly, had stopped shaking. The SUV carried us from the airport past rows of palm trees bending in the autumn sun. The air smelled of sea salt, so different from Minnesota's gray chill. I watched Michael through the rearview mirror. His eyes were steady, quietly absorbing the unfamiliar world around him. When the car turned into the gates of the seaside estate, my home for the past 3 decades, he froze. "This is your house?" His voice was almost disbelieving. I nodded. "Henry built it when we were married. It's nearly unchanged. Maybe because I haven't been able to change anything since he died." The housekeeper opened the door. Logan carried the luggage. I led Michael and Lily to the East Guest House, private enough not to feel intrusive, but close enough for me to know they were safe. The living room was simple, neutral-toned, with windows overlooking the garden and a small fountain. Lily had her own space in the adjoining room, a crib, a rocking chair, and a brand-new stuffed bear. Michael seemed stunned when he noticed the phone on the table, fully charged, with my name already saved in the contacts. "Anytime. Just text," I said. He nodded. "No thank yous." But his eyes softened for the first time. 3 days passed. Michael rarely left the room except to let Lily get some air. Maria, the nanny, didn't interfere. She only helped when needed. I let things unfold naturally. Trust, after all, needs room to grow. It can't be forced open. On the 4th day, I was revisiting Henry's old blueprints in the glass room when I saw Michael standing at the door. "What are you looking at?" he asked. "Your grandfather's legacy," I smiled. "Want to see?" He stepped closer, and the light caught the deep brown of his eyes. Henry's eyes. I opened a page, a young Henry hammering the frame of a small house with his bare hands. "Your grandfather started with nothing. No degree, no capital. just steady hands and a heart that wanted to build homes for others. Michael was quiet for a long time. I used to think all that talk about family legacy was just distant nonsense, he said softly. But seeing him, I think I understand. Having nothing doesn't mean giving up. I placed my hand on the photo. Then maybe you'd like to start again, from where he once did. He looked at me. I didn't offer a title or privilege. I simply said, Blue Horizon Developments is looking for an assistant for our new affordable housing project. No perks. No one will know who you are. If you do well, you'll rise on your own. If not, no one will judge. He hesitated. I don't have a degree in that field. No experience. Neither did Henry, I replied, but he had heart. And you are just beginning to find yours again. He nodded, slowly but firmly. The following Monday morning, Michael stepped out of his room wearing a light blue shirt and khaki pants, Lily in his arms. Maria took the baby. I said nothing, just handed him a cup of coffee. Go, I told him. No one there knows who you are, and that's the greatest chance you'll ever get. The door closed behind him. A new life began at the place where our family once fell apart. That same morning, I was reviewing the third quarter financial report draft in my office on the 32nd floor of Blue Horizon Tower when Rachel called through the intercom. Mrs. Carter, there are two people in the lobby. They say they're Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Carter and want to see Michael. Do they have an appointment? No, ma'am, but they're very insistent. They won't leave without seeing him. I stood up, feeling my heart tighten. 30 years since I last saw my son's face. Tell them Michael isn't available. I'll come down. They stood amid the rush of suited employees and the echo of quick footsteps in the gleaming glass lobby. Daniel Carter is thinner than I remembered, has gray streaks in his hair, and is wearing an expensive coat gone threadbare at the shoulders. Beside him stood Brenda, his wife, the same woman who had emptied my accounts with him years ago and vanished as if she'd never existed. Daniel turned at the sound of my heels striking the marble. Mother, he gasped, his eyes wide. I looked straight at him. Daniel. I nodded. It's been a long time. Brenda whispered, Alice. Evelyn. I corrected coldly. My name is Evelyn Carter. Alice died the day you two took $100 million and destroyed everything my husband built. Daniel glanced around, realizing the atmosphere wasn't as warm as he'd imagined. He forced a polite smile. We just want to talk to Michael. We're his parents. You understand, Mother. I stepped closer. Parents? Then tell me, what kind of parents let their son and granddaughter live under a bridge, in the rain, with a high fever, and not a single dollar to their name? Brenda cut in quickly. We were struggling. We couldn't help everyone. Couldn't, I interrupted. Or wouldn't. Do you remember when Michael called, begging for a place to sleep? What was the response again? Request denied. Those words sound familiar because I heard them too, from Daniel 30 years ago. Daniel clenched his jaw, struggling to keep his composure. We just want to make peace, to start over. He's still my son. I looked at him as if at a stranger. No, Daniel. He's my son now. The one I found after you abandoned him. The one I cared for. The one who rebuilt himself from the wreckage you left behind. And then Michael walked in. He had been standing just beyond the door, listening to everything. He said nothing until all eyes turned toward him. I don't need you to protect me, ma'am, he said quietly. Not angry, just tired. Hello, Dad, he added. Daniel stepped forward, his false warmth painfully transparent. Michael, I'm so glad to see you doing well. We can start again. We're family, right? Michael shook his head, his voice colder than the ocean wind. Family doesn't let you live under a bridge. Family doesn't tell you your grandmother is dead. Family doesn't reject a child who asks for help. And real family doesn't show up only when they see money and power. Daniel froze. For the first time, He had no words. Michael continued, "I don't hate you because hate is still a connection, and I don't feel anything anymore." He turned to me. "Can you end this?" I nodded and took an envelope from my handbag. A restraining order. "If either of you approach Michael or Lily again, you'll face legal action. And if you want publicity, I still have every piece of evidence from the theft years ago, ready for the press." Brenda went pale. Daniel lowered his head. Neither spoke again. Michael didn't look back as he left the lobby. He only said to me, softly enough that no one else could hear, "I don't know if I did the right thing, but I know I'm done." And I felt a chapter close for the first time in 30 years. 6 months after that fateful meeting, Michael was no longer the gaunt young man I'd found under a bridge. He had become an adult, not because of the fitted suit or his new title, Senior Project Manager at Blue Horizon Developments, but because his eyes had changed, his posture had changed, his heart had changed. Lily was now 2 years old. Every Friday afternoon, she toddled down the office hallways, giggling, when Michael came to pick me up for dinner. Her curly brown hair bounced, and her babbling filled the air, sunlight in my heart after 30 years of winter. That morning, during the company's board meeting, I entered with a decision I had carried for months. After presenting the next quarter's strategy, I rose, looking at the colleagues who had kept this company standing through every storm. Blue Horizon was never just about building houses, I said. It was about creating places to return to. Henry believed a home is the one thing that can hold a person together in a vast world. I looked toward the end of the table, where Michael sat quietly, unaware of what was coming. After 30 years at the helm, it's time to pass the wheel to someone who understands. Raising walls is easy, but building a family, that's what truly matters. I turned and extended my hand. "Michael Carter, as of today, you are the Chief Executive Officer of Blue Horizon." The room fell silent. A few stunned faces, a few slow nods. Then applause. Genuine. Not for the Carter name, but for what he had earned with his own hands. Later, as we stood by the glass wall of the top floor, watching the city bathed in sunlight, Lily clutched my hand and looked up. "Grandma, do we really have fish in the pond at home?" I laughed, brushing her messy curls. "Yes, and if we don't, we'll put some there. Because where there's family, there are fish in the pond, doors that stay open, and hearts that never close." Michael looked at me, eyes glistening, but there were no words of thanks. We'd moved beyond that. This was a moment of silent understanding. I had once been a ghost in a cold mansion, a relic of the past. But now, with Lily's laughter echoing through the halls and Michael rebuilding an old dream, I was alive again. Family isn't always perfect, but if you can hold it together and heal it, it will always be your most precious thing. So what about you? Would you forgive the child who betrayed you, or protect the next generation instead if it were you? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Silent Elderly Stories, where we share true tales of healing and love that reach the deepest corners of the heart.